is actually our annealing oven, not the size of our reheating chamber. So Kevin's currently getting a lot of glass. He's going to be making a white bit to put on top, which will be a very fun time for everyone because black and white are two of the hardest colors to work with together. Black has a very low melting point, and so that means it heats up very fast. White, on the other hand, has a very high melting point, which means it takes a long time to heat up. So this means as they continue to work, they're going to have to keep that in mind because the black base is going to heat up faster than the white area that this bit is going to go on. Which means if Cliff is inside of the hole for too long, the black area is going to move and the white's going to stay in the same spot, creating some weird shaping. Typically, whenever we blow glass, we try to make sure all of our colors go really well together, both in heat and colors. But white and black are at the exact opposites of the spectrum in terms of heat, so it's always a fun and interesting time whenever those two are working together.
It's going to go on the outside flat spot. There's going to be the snow. This is like a big old pile of snow.
So they're essentially going to use this white to create a nice layer of snow on the very top of the base of the globe. Do you want me to measure that, Cliff? Do you want me to measure?
Just wondering.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. We have other globes that we can top to fit.
Okay.
So even if it doesn't fit that one,
So Cliff's measuring the globe that we currently have out in the studio, but it's just informed that we have multiple globes, which is fantastic because glass is a very organic shape. And so it's going to be really, really hard to get everything perfect, especially since we're hand blowing it and it's not machine blown. Any wine glasses or drinking bottles or anything like that that you get from stores are typically going to be machine bottled. And the original first machine bottling blowing machine was created in the 1950s and is still widely used today. If you guys ever check out on YouTube or anything like that, I would highly recommend how it's made for that. It's a extremely interesting visual where blobs of this molten glass almost look like lasers coming out of this machine. But that's how a lot of the bottles are made in the stores, through this machine process. Obviously, since we're blowing hand-blown glass here, we're not going to have the perfect measurements available to us, but we can get pretty close. So you can see once again, Kevin and Cliff are really working in tandem at the moment. I want to make sure both of them are working at the same pace, both of them are on the same page. So Cliff's making sure the back end where that brake line is going to be nice and hot. Not too hot to where it's moving, but not too cold to where it's going to break. And then Kevin is taking that white blob, heating it all up, making sure it's good to go. Kevin's also shaping it up to where we can have a better drop for it. So he will physically drop it on top of this glass, I believe. The other thing that they're going to have to keep in mind is that this form is hollow, and so that top's going to heat very quickly. And so what's going to happen most likely is after they cut all of this together, Cliff's going to have to blow while they push that white back onto it.
My hands are so
Cliff's liking where the shape of the extra bit is at. And they're not going to go straight down on it. They're actually going to go at a slight angle. So they're officially liking where they're at, so they should be doing it on this next one. Now Cliff's got a giant pair of shears now to be able to make sure that he can actually cut through this glass. Kevin's initiated that he's good to go. So they're gonna go ahead and come out. We're gonna go ahead and start to drop this down. Go ahead and attach near the center if you can. Once they attach, Cliff is going to go ahead and cut that. And then he's going to go back in and heat it up. Immediately after that, what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to go ahead and shape that down and heat that up. Because that bit is the hottest part of the entire glass.
Oh no, we got plenty of time. Look at all that.
And so you can see you can move all of that white because it's still very hot. However, that black isn't moving as much, but as we talked about already, that extra bit of glass is going to go ahead and start heating up that top of the black. And so he's good to move it on this one, but on this next one, he may not be able to quite start moving it as much, but we'll see.
I think it's something you find it from that lens.
So you can see that top section of the black is now more orange. And Cliff's taking that tag again to go ahead and sculpt. So once again, we can use that tag as more of like the metal marker to where we can flatten the edges, or we can use the very tip to actually sculpt. It just depends on how we want to use it. So it looks like we're creating a nice little snow mound for the very top over here. What's nice too about doing this texturing on the top is that we're able to hide where that cut line is. Because we're creating all these grooves, it's a little bit harder to see exactly where Cliff cut it. Anytime we cut it, we're going to be able to see the inside of the clear and that line that appears. And so by creating all that texture, we get this really, really nice way to kind of hide it while also creating a really nice visual movement. That way it's more like mounds of snow. So Gavin went ahead and picked up one of the original objects out of the box. And so it holds at about 900 degrees. And so he has to reheat it immediately. And then he's going to bring it back and they're going to eventually attach it to the top of that snow globe. So they're going to go ahead and bring it over. Cliff's going to go ahead and grab onto it. And Cliff's already heated that top white part. And so whenever they attach, it's going to actually fuse together. And then Cliff will go ahead and tap on Kevin, and then it'll break up. Now, anytime we have any type of glass attaching or breaking off of anything, it's always going to create a little sharp area. So you can see Cliff's trying to break off that sharp area. He'll also probably go over there in a second and eventually try to torch it down. It just depends. And you can see that's the original house that we had. So we're discussing about which one we're getting next. So the next one we're going to get is going to be our tree without a stump. So Kevin's looking for the tree without a stump. That one, yeah. And he's looking for the best place to grab it. Now this is a fun one. You can see it's wiggling around a whole lot. And the reason is that punny is going to be a weak connection point. It's not actually going to hold quite a lot. It's more so just to temporarily get the flash tree hot and then break off easily. So Kevin's having a real fun time struggling with that real small hole.
I got stuck weird. Oh, you stuck on the side? Yeah. Sorry. I was sticking on the tip. It was not in a grabbable position.
So one of the things that we have to consider whenever we're taking things out of the pickup oven is whether or not they're in a good position to pick up. So as Kevin just mentioned to Cliff, you can see now it got stuck a little bit more on the side of that punny. So it was not quite in the best spot to be able to grab. However, they're going to make the best out of it. They're going to go ahead and attach, I believe, and then they'll chop off the top most likely, or they'll melt down that extra clear. Just depends on what works best for them. So they'll go ahead and take that glass, go ahead and attach it back to that hot spot, and then they're going to attempt to break off that extra punty area. So they were able to get most of it off. And now we have a nice tree right beside the house. So we can see once it's attached, they're going to go ahead and start moving it. Now Cliff went ahead and pushed it in a little too far, so he's going to give it some air to bring it back out. That's one of the issues we talked about a little bit earlier that we have to consider, is that this is still a hollow form, so anytime they push really hard on it, it's going to sink back in. So they go ahead and keep blowing it out, and that's going to help to make sure it doesn't collapse on itself.
Poultry? Yep, whatever you want now. Give me options.
So we can see Cliff is going to go ahead and heat up that section where it was attached previously. This is going to help to smooth out that area, as well as kind of hide that little blemish that's going to be there. But what's nice too is that they can go back in and reshape it if they have to. But that's one of the things about glass, is that we're constantly kind of working against and with it. Sometimes it does what we want, sometimes it kind of works on its own. So with that heat, we've gone ahead and kind of soaked in the rest of that glass. And so we won't be able to see that anymore. So Kevin's going to go ahead and walk over here to our pickup oven. As we talked about previously, the pickup oven is going to have all those little branches on there. So he's going to pick up that branch, or that tree, on the very tip this time. So this is a much more ideal location to pick it up, because it's not going to be on the side. Now it's going to be on the very tip, so it's going to be a lot easier for us to deal with. The other thing too is that we can also cut off the very top of the tip. And so if we get a little bit too much glass on the very tip of the glass, we can actually just cut it off. So as we previously stated, it's a real small hole that Kevin's working out of. So he's doing a good job to make sure that back cools off, then he heats all of it. And then he heats just the tip a little bit more. So they've said that they're good. Cliff's already heated up the spot that he wants it in. So they're going to go ahead and attach the base of that Duranch.
Oh, you got it.
That was an excellent punty, as it broke off very easily. Almost too easily, in fact. Cliff almost dropped it, but luckily enough, it was heated enough to where it
That made
attached.
my heart rate go up a little. Yeah, Next one?
So we have another tree that we're going to be going to go get. So Kevin's going to go ahead and shape that punny one more time, heat just the tip. In the meantime, Cliff's working on reshaping that tree that they just did. Kevin likes the shape of his punny, so he's going to go ahead and bring it over to our pickup oven and get that last little tree on there. Now this punny already looks a little bit hotter than the last one. That way it's a little bit more fused. At the same time, Cliff is going to go ahead and use that torch, fluffy torch, to make sure all of it's hot and happy. Remember, if this glass cools down too quickly, it's going to break. So he's using the fluffy torch to make sure it's all above 900 degrees. So Kevin's at a good spot, but Cliff currently needs to pick out a spot to heat it up. So Cliff's going to go ahead and heat up the specific area that he wants.
If it means I get to light my cigarette on a flamethrower, yes.
Once it's heated up in a good spot, then Cliff will probably take a quick flash and then tell Kevin he's good to go.
What do you think? Get a small presence on this? Yeah. The little ones that can tuck in behind the tree. Deal. Definitely.
So Kevin's going to head and let Cliff know that he's good to go. Cliff's going to go ahead and let Kevin know he's good. So they're going to come back. They're going to go ahead and attach. And then Cliff's going to go ahead and break off that top part. So now we can see we have a nice little cabin house.
30 and 8.
3 trees behind it.
By the Home Depot. There it is, gentlemen. This guy's in the world down there. Yeah, I need a little bit of strength. Those presents won't take much. The presents will be sold about presents, by the way.
So just as a reminder, we already have the top of the globe already done. So Cliff's currently just working on the inside part of it. We have the top of the globe as well. So this will be the globe that it'll actually go into. We're going to allow all of it to cool down first. Once it's cooled down, then we'll go ahead and attach all of it. Cliff's just nodded to Kevin, letting him know he's good for the next step. That entire time, Cliff's really focusing on reheating that shape. He doesn't want it to be too cold.
Smallest and largest. Give me the medium one so I can kind of judge. Maybe one that's bigger, right? Yeah. You got it.
So they're talking about which present to get first. So they're going to start off with a medium one. That way they know scaling wise which one's going to be smaller, which one's going to be larger. If you guys were watching earlier, Kevin made a stack of presents before. And so those presents are the one that we're going to be talking about adding on to next. So Kevin's gone ahead and gotten that punty. After he gets the punty, he'll go ahead and attach, get the smaller present. After waiting around for a little bit, we figured out which one is the medium-sized one.
Dad, grab on it. Did I put it in the tree?
What?
Presents?
In the tree?
Yeah. So there's a blizzard. The presents are going all over the place. Where the present is attached to the money is actually hot. Yes, the present is. Okay. So you have to grab it and flip it if you want the end. Okay.
So they're discussing about how Kevin picked it up on the wrong side for it to be able to go on. So what they're going to do is they're going to go ahead and probably grab it and flip potentially. So we'll see. Cliff wasn't liking that for most likely just the spot wasn't hot enough where he wanted to attach. He's also probably sizing up depending on the size of the present. For a much larger present, it's not going to fit in some of these nooks and crannies underneath the tree, and so he's really kind of figuring out where this present's going to best fit. So they're going to go ahead and transfer it off. Cliff's going to go ahead and attach it using the tweezers. That allows him to be able to flip it around in his hand. On these past ones, they were attaching it with the tree, and it was a lot easier to kind of work with. But on this one specifically, they had to go ahead and they had to move the present and flip it around.
That's good stuff.
So Kevin's waiting on standby with the other present at the moment. Cliff's just making sure everything's shaped up and good to go. Once Cliff's liking where everything's at, then he'll tell Kevin he's good to go, and they'll go and get the next spot. First, Cliff's going to do maintenance heat just to make sure all of it's really nice and hot. Yeah. So Kevin's gone ahead and picked up that extra present. Cliff at this point is going to go ahead and heat the specific area he wants. They're talking about where the scar mark is from where it broke off and where they cut it. They're trying to make sure that that is where it actually attaches. That way we don't have any evidence of it being there before. So they'll do the same thing where Kevin's going to go ahead and have those shears ready to pop that off. Cliff's going to go ahead and keep a hold of it. And then he's going to go ahead and start attaching. And once it's attached, he'll give it all a quick little heat, and he'll go ahead and shape it back up. So that was the larger of the present, so I believe we have the tiniest one left.
I had like 2.5 mediums, a tiny, and then not a large.
The size is
So
relative
like
at this
3 mediums
point.
and 1 small.
Fair enough. So we're getting a size of a present on the next one. But we can see our general layout so far. We have those trees behind. We have one of the presents hiding in the back of the house and one of the presents on the side.
You know what? All I made were mediums. It felt small when it was right too. It told you.
So they're going to go ahead and start heating it up to that specific area.
You can either make an outhouse or you can just make a piece of shit.
You gotta start dreaming big with goals.
So Cliff's letting him know that he's good. They're going to go ahead and attach it. Same thing as last time. He's going to grab it with those tweezers. They're going to break it off the pipe. Once it's broken off the pipe, he's going to take that connection point and go and attach. And they're looking good.
Oh yes, we have to stellify this. Finer.
So we have everything attached at this point. Cliff's babysitting it at this point.
That's fine.
The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our white glass powder, and this is going to create a nice little almost snowfall on top of all of the stuff that we've done. And so we can see on the side, Cliff is still shaping up those trees, and on our bottom right-hand corner, you can see we have powder already prepared inside one of these, nice sifting. So Cliff's going to go ahead and just make sure all that temperature's good, fix up those trees to where he's liking them. And then after everything's all nice and happy, then we'll go ahead and get that white powder over everything to be like a nice little snowfall. So Cliff is going to go ahead and shape that top tree up a little bit more. Once again, heating those areas just to make sure that all those areas are going to be nice and hot on the areas he wants to move. Glass is only going to be moving wherever it's actually cold or hot. It doesn't move where it's cold. Cliff's also done a great job showing us how flexible glass is. You may be able to see that very end of it on the camera. He pulled out a very long stringer to get a very nice point.
Making sure he's going to finish before you meet. Like you need to be gone by 9:10. I hope. Or within the next 4.5 minutes.
see. So Cliff's gonna go ahead and torch up that area again. Remember, only heating up that section that he really, really wants to move. The other thing too is he's kind of rounding up those tops a little bit more just to make sure they're not super up.
So bring it over, hold it up. I'll do dusty time.
So they're talking about how little snow they want. They're gonna tippity tap it. We're discussing the varying levels of snow with how much powder we want on there. I think they've decided they're just gonna tap the snow on. Just tap it on.
Bring it over here and do a little sippy action.
Just tap it on.
Lighter instead of just complete dump.
Tap it on.
Right. Because this is the part where Cliff can work for the next 3.5 weeks.
Yeah. The snow's gonna.
You heard that? That's the last one? Yeah. Awesome.
So Cliff's just shaping up those trees. He wants them at a nice higher point instead of the more rounded edges they were at earlier. Now glass, naturally when it's hot, is going to want to round out a lot more. And so he's purposely forcing it at the very end so that way those heats don't actually round it out too much. If he had made them really sharp at the beginning, he's been heating it too much at this point to where it would have been really round by the time he was done. So he's doing this final shaping at the very end, right before they're going to go ahead and break it off. Cliff's given us an estimation of about 4 minutes left. Chat, you can place your bets now. Will we be 4 minutes? As our final steps, all we're doing is shaping up this final tree, and then we're going to go ahead and sift a little bit of snow on top of all of this. And then we're going to have to make sure the heat is stabilized before we can put it away. So a lot to be done in a couple of minutes. The other thing you notice, Kevin is going in to go ahead and take that torch and go ahead and heat that moil. The moil is the part of the glass that's on the pipe. Now that glass is a very crucial area because if it gets too cold, the entire piece is going to want to break off on that line. The reason that he's heating it in that area specifically is because the metal's going to pull all the heat from the glass. And so that glass in particular gets extremely cold faster than the rest. They're liking the shape, making some final last adjustments. They're allowing this to cool just a little bit more before they get their next step done. But hot enough to where it can move.
Come over here, or I can bring it into the middle. Let's go more middle.
So they're going to move this a little bit further away. These little vents that you see above the hole are actually able to bring air out. So they'll go ahead and start sifting a little bit of snow on top. So now we have a nice little blizzard that's on top of there. Cliff's just blowing off some of that extra. So Cliff went ahead and just blew a little extra of that powder off. Cliff's called for a towel to go ahead and start brushing off that extra color. Yes.
Very scientific.
We're breathing really deeply right now, getting all the extra lead from the enamel white into our system. At least.
But since that glass is so cold, they're going to go ahead and reheat it and go ahead and reshape it. Or just allow it to melt back in. There's no reshaping at this point. They're pretty much at the spot where they like it. But we can see that light snowfall that's over everything now with that nice powder. What's great is that that powder is naturally going to go in where all of those little grooves are, because those are going to catch more powder than the rest. So we're looking like we're close to one of the final heats. So while Clifton's going to go ahead and make sure all of that heat is nice and even on the glass, Kevin off screen right now is going to go ahead and get some gloves and safety equipment on right now. As much as we would love to be able to catch the glass with our bare hands, that's not an option for us.
The phrase oogie comes to mind.
As we break the glass, remember it's cold, but cold's relative for us. It's at about 1,000 degrees. Currently they're attempting to reduce the black. Remember, reduction is whenever those colors are going to go ahead and turn to more of that metallic look. The way that has to happen is that all of that black color needs to heat up enough to where that metal gets pulled to the surface. Unfortunately, we're at the stage where if it moves and heats up too much, the entire glass is going to move. So they've decided to keep it a little bit more black at the moment. So they're going to go ahead and apply water to that break-off point. They've signified they're ready. Kevin's going to catch it. And then they're going to use the torch to go ahead and flatten out that bottom and make it nice and smooth.
Heavy. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. That's like 6-7 pounds of material.
So now that that cracked area is going to be a little bit softer because of that heat, they're going to go ahead and put it away. Now, as we said earlier, all of our things eventually end up over here into our annealing oven. The annealing oven is slowly going to bring that down from 900 degrees to room temperature.
Oh, just like we talked about. And then ultimately that'll go on. I think they'll be about to here. Might be touching. Actually, this is bigger than that. This is actually bigger than what that is. This is the opening of the hole. That is smaller than this. That's bigger. It's hot. All right, happy holidays, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We always enjoy this time of year. The tree lighting, I want to thank the team. Kanan has been on the mic. Thanks for narrating for us, Kanan. Jean's always behind the scenes. Brandy's back there producing the show. Thanks to Heidi. And then Kevin McGehee. Thank you, Kevin. Nice moves tonight. That worked out fantastic. Done, sir. Very good stuff. Very good stuff. I also want to recognize the City of Fort Worth, the Texas Commission on the Arts, the R4 Foundation, and Ellen and Carol Green Roads Charitable Trust, and everybody out there who's ever donated $1. We really appreciate your support. And it's that time of year. It's the time of giving. It's the time of gratitude. We're super grateful. And if you got a couple bucks, throw it our way. We got a lot planned. We got a lot to do. There's growth in the future, so it's going to take everybody. So y'all have a wonderful holiday season with your families and your friends, and we'll all ring in the new year soon enough. Thank you, everybody. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Signing off.